name is Angie Hartwig. I work at the KCNSC, operated by Hartwig and I am serving as your keynote coordinator for this year. I wanted to take a moment and just thank all of you for being here and spending your day with us. I truly hope you're having a wonderful time, and I think your day is about to get better, as I am so excited to introduce you to your 2024 speaker. Not only because she has a wonderful topic for discussion for us, but also because she's one of my favorite people. So Laura Hartwig is our chief engineer at the KCNSC Security Campus, managed by Honeywell FMNT. We have over 7,000 people across Kansas City and Albuquerque, and our mission provides national security through the diverse engineering, manufacturing, and secure supply chain management. As our chief engineer, Laura is responsible for leading a group of technical experts across a variety of advanced technologies, including product, manufacturing, quality, and systems engineering expertise for mechanical and electrical products, materials, telemetry, and test equipment. Before joining KCNSC, Laura worked for General Motors Corporation and served in design and manufacturing roles, as well as selection as a GM Fellow for graduate study. And Laura's academic degrees include a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from the Missouri University of Science and Technology, and a master's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Michigan. In addition to her professional responsibilities, Laura spends time with her husband and 3 daughters traveling, enjoying performing arts and volunteering, and she is very active in organizations targeted at care of orphans and also holds a leadership role in her church. So without further ado, please help me welcome my dear friend, Laura Hartwig.
Well, I am so glad to be here, and the energy in the room has been amazing. I got to be at one of the activity tables as you all were competing with your hands-on activity, and that was wonderful to see. So I am proudly an engineer, and this event is just amazing to me. So I do want to take some time with you and chat through some of my experiences in engineering. And my title, maybe provocatively, is called Do I Belong in Engineering? And we'll unpack that a little bit as we go. Angie mentioned some of the most important people in my life. I'll throw them up there. Beyond my headshot is a picture of my wonderful family. My husband, Troy, is also an engineer, and he actually also works at the KCNSC. And then I have 3 amazing daughters, Rebecca, Rachel, and Rudy. When I gather with either colleagues or an event like this, or making a presentation, I often have need of some introductory slide. And I did get some friends get some help from friends glamorizing my slides for this event. But here's a little bit about me. I've actually been practicing engineering for 30 years now, and time has flown in those 30 years. But I'm a mechanical engineer, bachelor's and master's in it. I've worked in my professional career for 2 companies, as Angie mentioned, and both of those companies gave me great opportunity to continue learning and advancing my skills. I am also a professional engineer and a project management professional. In my spare time, I do love to read. The whole family loves to go camping. We travel a fair bit. You probably noticed my daughters were adopted internationally, and we have traveled to their nation of birth many times. And so those are some of the things that are near and dear to me. And then in terms of both my personal life and my work life, I'm all about being trying to seek the win-win. What's going to make this work for everyone? Sometimes that means being willing to say the hard things as we get to what's going to make it work, but that's absolutely always a goal of mine. Okay, friends, this is my happy introduction. Let's do another introduction from my work life. So in 2011, I had just been promoted to technical management. And as I, let's see, let me just back up a little bit. When I applied for the position of being a technical manager, there were actually several management positions open at the time. And the deal was you applied, but you weren't exactly sure which group you were going to be managing when you applied. So that was a little bit nerve-rattling, but I went ahead and applied. And what ended up transpiring was that I became the technical manager of a group of electrical engineers that was responsible for some very complex electrical assemblies. I'm a mechanical engineer, again, not to state the obvious, but as I learned what position I was going to be taking on and then entering into that position, I thought, oh my goodness, I don't really know a whole lot about these devices or how they work. And there's a reason I became a mechanical engineer. Circuits and circuit designs, I appreciate what they do for me in my day-to-day life, but it's not, the mechanical engineers, we like to put our hands on stuff, and that can be more difficult in electrical engineering. And so my belief was I needed to become an expert on all these complex electrical devices. If I'm going to manage this group and the work of these engineers, I've got to spin up quickly on how these work, all the fundamentals of them, the ins and outs. I am sure I drove the people in my department crazy, scheduling meetings with them to go over drawings and schematics and see how everything worked. And I thought, I don't know that I'm going to get all this. They're pretty complex. In fact, I'm not sure that I even can. And then pretty soon, someone's going to figure out that I don't actually know how all these things work and all the ins and outs of the engineers in this department. Everyone will know I'm a fraud. And that was nerve-wracking. I carried around a pit in my stomach. I was a little bit frantic trying to figure all this stuff out. And it was kind of a crucible for me. There's a name for that sensation: imposter and imposter syndrome. And this was coined as a term just about 15 years ago. It's a fairly recent term, but was not my first brush with it. And the term, the definition is, for imposter syndrome is a persistent belief in the lack of intelligence, skills, or competence. And statistically speaking, most women in STEM have had a brush with imposter syndrome. Certainly me included. So what we want to do today in the talk, Do I Belong in Engineering, is take a good hard look at imposter syndrome as you contemplate professionals pursuing a professional career as an engineer, and start to figure out, what do we do with that? Okay, so first of all, I just gave the definition, and it's around our persistent belief in our lack of some things. And I'm going to key in on the word competence. So now I want to hear some from you all. What do you think it means to be competent? Oh, we've got some microphones coming. There's one up near the front.
The ability to do a job at the most basic level that is required to do it
Good, great. Others, yeah.
To have an understanding of like the baseline, like she said, of like just the bare minimum that you need to do.
A baseline understanding or the bare minimum. Others. What does it mean to be competent?
Confidence in yourself.
Oh, confident in yourself. Great. Okay. There's one up here. Yeah.
To know how to do something successfully.
How to do it successfully. Thank you for that.
To know what the constraints are that keep a project or an idea from succeeding and how to overcome them.
Okay. So even having the awareness of strengths as well as weaknesses and how to overcome. Awesome. Any others?
Qualifications.
Qualification. Very good engineering answer. Good, yeah. Okay. Well, man, you guys nailed it. I don't even know what I'm doing up here. Those were awesome thoughts on competence. Having the necessary ability, knowledge, or skill to do something successfully, suitable or sufficient skill, knowledge, experience, properly qualified. So the qualification answer, fantastic. Yeah, that's what competence is. What often happens when we run up against imposter syndrome is some distorted beliefs about what competence is. And I put up some of the more common distortions. Number one, expert. That was the distortion I was running into. I've got to know everything, really about everything, not only the field that I studied in, but all the ins and outs of these products. And I probably was also setting aside what the engineers do versus a technical manager does. But expert, that distortion is buying into the notion that unless I know everything about this, I'm not competent. Or natural genius, that one's fun. That notion is that I shouldn't have to be taught. Why don't I already know this? Have you ever been in a class and maybe the first day or the first week, the teacher throws out something and it seems like everyone else has already got a leg up on you? And you're like, oh man, not sure I belong here. That's that natural genius idea kicking in. But why don't I already know this? I shouldn't have to be taught. Another one is perfectionist. That one's less about knowing, it's about doing. It all has to be done perfectly, or clearly I'm not competent. Or individualist. I should know how to do this all on my own, or I should be able to do this all on my own. If I can't do it all myself, then I'm not competent. All those are actually distortions. Rarely in engineering, in my 30 years, rarely do I do something all by myself. Engineering is a team sport. And the notion that you have to be able to do it all yourself is a distortion around competence. Regarding perfectionism, I love this quote. It reframes perfectionism not as the pursuit of something great, but actually the pursuit of the worst in ourselves, and let's opt out of that. So how does it show up? How would these distortions show up? Sometimes it means over-preparing. I believe in preparation. I spent some time on these slides, I workshopped the notions, I talked with people, with colleagues, with some of my younger mentees, I prepared. Over-preparing is when you've gotten past that, good, and you're just absolutely hitting the diminishing returns and managing to drive yourself crazy. And that's That's what that expert distortion can result in. Holding back, and women will tend to say, as they look at something new, it could be a job, it could be a new sport, a club, activity. If I can't already do it, and by do it, I mean I'm ready to do everything about it, then I'm just gonna hold back. I shouldn't step into it. So sabotaging, ladies, so sabotaging. And then the self-sabotage. I know it's not going to be up to par, so I'm just going to go ahead and wait till 11th hour, or downplaying yourself. There's no way this would have happened if it hadn't been for all these other great people on the team, on the effort. I'm just lucky to be with them. Again, I love giving shout outs to colleagues, to teammates. I also try to remember I showed up too, right? I was in the mix. So now I'd like to have a little bit of interaction at the tables. One of the things we're trying to do with this talk is get out of the notion that being a successful engineer means that you never have brushes with these ideas, and start the conversation about what does that look like and feel like. So I'd love for you all to have a few minutes of conversation at your table. I'm especially interested if you can get your mentors talking, but all of you as well. Have you ever felt like you didn't belong somewhere because you were brushing up against some of these ideas around what it means to be competent? All right, thanks. I'll be back with you in a couple. Okay. I hope it felt good to acknowledge these feelings or these situations. It would be a bummer if I ended the presentation here. So now let's talk about what do we do with all that. And when you're dealing with distortions, false ideas or beliefs, it's always helpful to bring a healthy dose of truth or reality to the situation. And so that's what we're going to talk about in the next few slides. So first of all, seeing yourself accurately or with reality in mind. Here are some really practical suggestions. A lot of times we will get that inner critic going in our head that says some things about you actually aren't competent, or you don't have all those skills, or I'm not sure you could pursue engineering or be successful at that. And so here are some practical ways to get yourself out of that rut. Make a list of your accomplishments, journal your successes. As I was preparing for this, I actually did the bottom one myself. I wrote myself a letter of recommendation. It was hard, and I'm glad I did it though, and I have actually got it at my desk. When I'm getting one of those emails I don't like, I'll pull that out to just sit with it for a second before I move on and figure out what I'm gonna do with it. Some things to maybe stop doing. Comparing, that's just, who knows when you do the comparing, what's going on, what nervous pit the person you're comparing yourself to is carrying around, what challenges they've overcome. Comparing just is a road to a bad place. Externalizing your success only happened because I was in the right place at the right time. Successful people put themselves in good places, right? So let's stop doing that. And then my limiting belief was that I could only add value through that kind of crazy notion of being an expert and what I thought being an expert was. So figure out what that limiting belief is for yourself and work on that. I love this quote from Margaret Thatcher. She was actually by training a chemist. She was a scientist herself. I actually got to speak or see her speak once, and she's pretty amazing. But she said, yeah, I wasn't lucky, I deserved it. Love that about her. Yeah, right? you go. Also show up for yourself. You know, a lot of times when I'm coaching or mentoring younger colleagues, there are things that if they were giving advice to someone else, they would advise them to do these things, but sometimes it's hard to do that for ourselves. I know when I'm facing a big, scary task, and I've got some on my plate right now, one that I was super anxious about starting. It is always better after you take the first step. Like I don't even, a good project manager, I've got the whole thing laid out and here's how I'm gonna get to the end. Sometimes I don't know all that, but I know what the first thing I'm gonna do is, and it's always better after you've taken that first step. Just some other quick things, I'm going to go ahead and put them up there and not read them all for you. But it is always helpful if you can find a confidant, whether that's a classmate, a trusted mentor, someone in your network. It's always good to acknowledge those feelings and then have some place that you can talk about with. Step forward, the raise your hand and keep it raised. Step forward. I know it can be frightening, but the worst thing that's going to happen is they're not going to call on you with the raised hand. But if you don't raise your hand, it's much more likely they're not going to call on you. Okay. And then making mistakes. You know, the teams that won the competition, that is fantastic, and bravo, well done job. I can't tell you how many things I did like that when I was in college, how many things I've done in my career, and let me just tell you, you'll make mistakes. If your bar is, I'm not gonna make mistakes, you'll make mistakes. So let's redefine what that means. They will occur. So what? And now what? What do the mistakes mean? What can I learn from this? How do I move past it? If you're not making mistakes, you're not doing interesting things. Everything interesting I've done has involved making mistakes, usually in proportion to how interesting it is. So that will happen, and redefining what that means. Mistake is not equal to failure. Sometimes you win, and sometimes you learn. And again, it's our friend in progress. Okay, I do, since I've titled this section Truth, I do want to add just a little bit of truth in talking about imposter syndrome. As I was looking at this topic and trying to get some wisdom beyond just my own personal experiences, there was a little bit of a backlash out there in literature. Now that that term's been around for a few years, a bit of a backlash. And the backlash is basically this. Imposter syndrome, if you think about the term, it seems to imply that it's all in our heads. Like everything's gonna be okay if we can train ourselves to think differently. And indeed, I've given you some hopefully useful tips towards that end. But in fact, there are tons of studies that show that women in STEM can be viewed differently and there are challenges around that. I think that might be a good discussion for you to have with your mentors if you have time as well. That is a reality also. Okay, so now what? Pick your battles. Pick someone trustworthy to be a confidant and leave a better place. Part of how every mentor in this room is leaving a better place is sharing what engineering has meant to them, the good, the bad, the ugly, and it's all there. And helping to frame the wonderful profession to you all, that's part of leaving a better place. Maybe that's helping someone new to to your organization, your club. Maybe that's when you go off to college, that's helping an underclassman. Maybe it's the new person on the team. I've met some wonderful people from my workplace that I didn't have a chance to meet until today, and we've met today. We're gonna make some connections, leave a better place. And that's what you do with the reality of where we are today, is you just keep taking one step at a time. Okay, so here's my call to action for you. As we go through Q&A, we'll have some resources. Some of my favorite materials when I was looking at imposter syndrome were going to be up there. I would challenge you to take just that little step about seeing yourself accurately, to jot down what are 3 things that I'm really good at, and also to find someone for community. We are a community as well, and everyone here is invested in your success. And with that, I thank you for your time and attention.